Have you ever walked into a room of strangers and made a conscious effort to make sure the other people in the room don't see you as a threat? Well, if you're white, it's probably not even something you thought about.
But for some black people, it can be a matter of survival. From something as simple as getting onto an elevator with a white person or our interactions with police. When we're not around people who look like us, we often need to be calculated with every move we make to make others comfortable.
To put this into perspective, I sat down with two very similar Orlando families with one major difference.
Hi, my name is Diana McCoy Carcamo.
Edward Wallace.
Meet the Wallaces.
Paul Dalton.
Stacy Dalton.
And the Daltons.
I'm 20 years old.
Who on paper look very similar.
And I'm 21 years old.
Both upstanding Orlando families. Both Christian. Both with multiple kids. Both with similar economics.
Philando Castile.
Eric Gardner. Breonna Taylor.
Both finding themselves speaking the names of black people killed by police more and more often.
I never want to watch something like that again.
I mean, I cried. I literally cried.
But off paper, one obvious difference, the color of their skin. And with that come different realities. We sat down with both families and asked them the same series of questions regarding race and racism and policing to get a better understanding about just how similar and or how different these families' perspectives might be. On a scale of 1 to 10, do you think racism is alive? 1 being no, not at all, 10 being yes in every aspect of life.
10.
10.
10.
10.
Elias?
10.
And David?
10.
I'm going to say 5.
10.
I mean, I would say 7 just because there's definitely areas in life where we've improved, but it's 100% still active.
How often are you aware of your race?
1 being not at all.
Yes, 1 being not at all and 10 being constantly. How often are you aware of your race?
6 or 7.
7.
8.
10.
2 for me, not very much.
More lately, but 2 probably.
I'd say 1. It's not even really anything that I think of.
If someone says they are colorblind, do you see that as a positive statement or a negative one, and why?
I think it's negative because I think what people are trying to say is that they are not judging you based on your color, but it's not true because everybody notices. You notice things about people when you look at them, and that's just something that you automatically, you register, you know what I mean?
And I think also when people say they're colorblind, it's almost like they're ignoring the issues that come with being of a certain color that we don't have to face.
Yeah, I think people say it and they mean it in a nice way probably, but I don't think it's necessarily true. I think we all see color to a certain degree, and we all have unconscious bias.
If someone says they are colorblind, do you see that as a positive statement or negative statement?
Definitely negative.
It's definitely a negative. I'm a black man. There's no denying that. If you are telling me you don't notice that I'm a black man, then you are obviously obfuscating reality.
I feel like it's a way to deflect from having a real conversation.
I feel like it's another way to be blind to what's going on.
By saying that you're colorblind, you're trying to remove yourself from the equation, when instead you should be on our side, with us, standing with us.
The more striking difference is most apparent when asked about police, how they interact with them, and how they view them.
I mostly view them as positive. People that are here to help us. I don't like getting pulled over and getting a speeding ticket, but it's a positive thing. They're going to protect and serve.
Yeah, I would say positive.
I would say positive as well.
I don't even want to put it out there that cops are bad. They're not. But because of the few bad apples, they've spread, a culture of fear amongst African Americans has spread, because they've allowed these few bad apples to continue to act.
So I'd say there are good cops, but there's definitely a lot of bad cops.
It just enacts a fear within me.
How do you view police?
I mean, I feel like they've always been scary to me, even as a little kid. I do the closing shift, and sometimes I'm like, if something were to happen to me, would I call the police? The answer is probably not.
Hearing your daughter who works late at night say that she doesn't feel comfortable calling the police if she were to need help, how does that make you feel?
That's scary.
I'm disheartened hearing Diana say that she wouldn't call the police if something were to happen, and then I don't know why I'm so shocked, because I feel like I know in my heart that she would probably call me first if something were to happen. And then if I received that call, the question is, would I call the cops? You know, while I'm on my way there, I'm actually getting emotional thinking about it.
Their son David, who's in the Navy and has served overseas off and on for the last decade and is currently in Portugal, offered this perspective from his time abroad.
And a lot of the police outside of America didn't have guns, didn't have tasers, stun guns. Some of them didn't even have batons. And I never felt fearful walking past them. I'd give them a friendly nod. But I was pulled over last year driving in the States, and my first thought was to start recording. Just because of fear over that this could go sideways.
Perhaps the most striking difference, the way they interact with police and what they tell their children about how to interact with police.
We really don't talk about it much at all. If anything, I've talked about my kids, if they get pulled over for speeding, you know, to know where their registration is, where their license or their insurance information is, to be respectful. But it's not a big thing we talk about.
Yeah, I would say the same. We don't talk about it much, and the things we have said are just be respectful and do what they ask. It's not really not a big focus.
Yeah, it's definitely never been anything that I've been overly concerned with, I would say. I mean, it's never really been, am I going to get arrested? Am I going to die? Anything like that. It's no real fear.
For me, you know, my father, even though he was in law enforcement, taught me at a pretty early age, don't trust him. He didn't trust even a lot of the people that he worked for and worked with in law enforcement because of the bigotry and how they even treated him as a black law enforcement officer.
Ed Wallace says his dad taught him at an early age how to react if ever pulled over by police. It's a lesson that has stuck with him, and now also with his wife after they were pulled over together.
She saw me go through this whole ritual, and she was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm making sure this guy knows I'm not a threat."
That ritual, something they've now passed down to their children.
What I've learned is, like, for example, when getting pulled over, like in the day or at night, to keep your hands like where they can see, where the cop can see them, and announce what you're doing. Like, if you don't make any sudden movements.
Like, have your hands outside the vehicle, have the lights on. If it's nighttime, pull down all the windows so they can see.
The least that we can do, I think, you know, just because of the atmosphere and really the racial charge that's in the country, not just now, but has always been here. It's just smart.
It breaks my heart. I would never think my son would have to do something like that or tell him to do something like that. I don't think anybody should have to do that with their children.
So the Daltons believe a first step in changing some of what's going on, dialogue.
I've definitely had more discussions with some of my black friends about it than I'd ever had before, which has kind of opened my eyes into how they feel about the issue.
What about with your white friends?
With my white friends, not as much. I mean, no.
Have you had conversations with your white friends as well? I know you said you had it with some of your black friends in your group.
Yes, yeah, we talked about it, and you know, some of them understand and some don't, honestly.
I feel like it has dominated a lot of conversations, both black and white friends. Everybody's got different kind of levels of belief in what's going on, honestly. I don't think we realized it was as bad as it is, that it really had not improved until everything that has happened lately happened and this much attention has been given to it.
Well, no, and you hear certain things like white privilege, and when I first heard that years ago, I thought, well, you know, I didn't have it easy growing up. I mean, I didn't have any privilege, and
is it off-putting to hear that? Does it feel offensive? Or
it used to him very much.
It used to, because I've always thought, you know, I worked hard, I've done, you know, whatever. I didn't grow up with money or what, you know what I mean? So
as soon as he heard the words white privilege, he would just kind of put up a wall and be like, I'm not listening, because that's not, you know, that's not me.
But as that wall has started coming down, a sense of hope going up in its place.
Really hopeful.
Yeah, me too. I'm going to say 9, 10.
So like 8.
Okay.
I'd agree. I feel like Gen Z is doing a pretty good job of keeping everybody aware.
I'm going to take the current movement in its historical context, and we've been here before to some extent. What is different about this movement is the multicultural nature of it. We need every American to recognize that racial hatred in this country has to come to an absolute and complete end, and it takes all of us to do that. And it takes action and agency.
One of the other questions that we asked that we didn't include in the story was about how their perspective on police and policing will impact their vote, if at all. The Wallaces said it definitely would, while the Daltons said not so much. But again, something they all pretty much agreed on, that the younger generation is going to continue pushing for change and that they most likely will see it happen in their lifetime.